LeBron had his 21st career playoff triple-double, finishing 26, 11, and 13. But the Kings said it was, quote, one of my worst games of the season. Nick, how did LeBron look last night?
I thought it was the second worst game of the playoffs, following only game one of the first series, the game against the Pacers that they got blown out in. Played 44 relatively ineffective minutes in that game. We're in an odd place with LeBron. He outscored the Sixers by himself in the final 4 minutes. He hit the fadeaway to tie the game. He almost did the Derek Fisher. Derek Fisher's famous shot was with .4. LeBron almost hit that shot with .6 to walk off. But I agree with him. 12 of 30 from the field, 1 of 6 from the free throw line, which is concerning. I thought it was a C- game, so I agree with LeBron.
His overall game and his overall leadership, the way he dominated the ball to get other guys in position, it's not necessarily always you get credit on the stat sheet for. They don't win this game if he doesn't have that type of leadership.
Sure.
Bringing the ball up 94 feet, how taxing that can be. So not the type of game, but man, the dude's been out of his mind. Like, so now he came back down to earth with a triple-double. Oh, get better in game 2, LeBron.
All right, sticking with this game, Raptors superfan Drake and Cavs big man Kendrick Perkins got into a verbal altercation before halftime, or in other words, they had to fight. The two had to be separated by security and teammates. What'd you make of this? What do you make of Drake coming at Perkins, CC?
I like the fact, anytime you know things are bad, when JR has got to pull you off and tell you, when JR is the peacemaker, and I like how Drake, once they had got Kendrick Perkins a little, he was already moving. It was the typical, that courage. Oh, let's go outside now. Somebody hold him. Let him go. No, he didn't
Drake's surrounded by
he didn't want no piece of that.
3 security guards. And I understand that Drake has a position with the Raptors. He's their universal brand ambassador, something along that lines. He's the only fan in America that wouldn't get kicked out for something like this, or one of only a few.
Yes.
Like, I guess Spike Lee historically had some moments like this with Reggie Miller, but there weren't threats involved.
No. Spike Lee and Reggie always a great deal of respect there.
It was friendly. And listen, Drake also needs to know who he's talking to. It wasn't Fred VanVleet he was talking to there. Kendrick Perkins, 6'10", 270 pounds, who is only still in the league to deal with people such as Drake on the other team, much less a fan. Like, Drake, stick to singing, talking about how tough the life is with all the women and all. Come on, Drake. Stay. I hate to say this, but you got a lane. Just stay in the lane.
We passed my job.
Sorry.
Moving on to football, Baker Mayfield was selected first overall by the Browns. But according to Baker's agent, if he slipped to number 2, he could have been a New England Patriot. They were considering trading up. CC, what do you make of this report?
Well, first, I believe it because the agent can't put that type of information out there unless there was a lot of facts involved. I do believe that was the way they enticed Baker to take one of those very, very precious 30 visits that they are allowed to bring the prospects into their facility, because I know the Patriots. They keep a folder on every player that's available, players playing in Canada, players been kicked out of college football. They keep data on them. And if you can bring that guy in, and then in those interviews during the course of his career, we might bump into each other again. So sometimes it's not the trade, which I believe was real, because they did have 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s, and the Giants were looking to move the 2nd pick in the draft.
And people should understand that even if the Patriots weren't able to get enough capital together to trade up to number 2, if Baker doesn't go number 1, there's nothing to say he goes 2, 3. Like, he could have had the Josh Rosen slide.
Yes.
Like, if Josh Allen goes 1, then I think the Jets still take Darnold, and then so Josh Rosen go a little higher. The point is that the Patriots could be interested because they maybe want to trade up for him, but also we've heard Bill Belichick talk about this when he signs free agents. Not that you expect Baker to hit free agency ever if he's a great player, but that when he signs free agents, we talked to this guy at the draft. We met with him there. We know about him from that process.
Bill Belichick, I wouldn't be surprised, man. He'd go to Cleveland, have a bad career, then Belichick pick him up like he does all those other veterans and resurrect his career.
The Steelers drafted Ben Roethlisberger's possible replacement in Mason Rudolph and probably expect some mentoring to happen. Big Ben has other thoughts, saying, quote, I plan on playing 3 to 5 more years. CC, what's Ben Roethlisberger's role in Mason Rudolph's development?
if Ben plays another 3 to 5 years, that would have a great impact on Mason Rudolph, because he would be able to see, man, how a guy is able to play at an elite level, even an advanced part of his career. It's also, how do you lead the Pittsburgh Steelers? This is one of the great franchises in all of sports, not only in the National Football League, but Ben knows the legacy of the National Football League. 98 years we've been doing this. People have mentored and helped us to be able to have the type of success that we have. So there is kind of a mandate from player to player, from veteran to veteran, of what he should do. But it's easier to do as a wide receiver when there's 3 spots on the field. Yeah. When you're the quarterback and it's only 1 spot, you can only teach him so much.
I also think it's noteworthy. The Steelers must really like this player. They traded up to go get him. They traded away Martavis Bryant for the 79th pick. Baker's available at, Mason's available at 76. They're worried he could be gone 76, 77, 78. So they packaged that pick and a late round pick to move up to get him. So they see something in Mason Rudolph more than just your typical, okay, he's going to come in as a backup quarterback. So I think Ben knows that, or if I were Ben, I would know that. And he knows he wants to let the Steelers know, I'm not leaving anytime soon.
All right, finally, it's May 2nd, and Dez Bryant remains unsigned. Cowboys chief of scouting, Will McClay, looked at tape and said Dez struggles with, quote, the inability to win one-on-one and to win downfield. All right, Cece, let's just break this down a second. From a football perspective, what is he referring to here? What does that mean?
Well, he's talking about football is a game of matchups, but it's more a game of numbers. And who can create an advantage? If you're a defensive end and you can create a double team, you have shortened the numbers on the offensive side because they have to allocate another body to be able to take care of you. So that gives you better matchups up and down the line of scrimmage. As a wide receiver, it's always your job as a dominant receiver to have them either double team you or play cover 2, which means they are leaning a number of their players to your side of the field, which gives other players on the field better matchups. Any good receiver who knows about football, when you ask him, what are the things that you would like to have to be an effective offensive player? He would talk about a quarterback, talk about having a veteran quarterback who can make adjustments, but also he would talk about, if he's smart, a running game. Because a running game, the way they have in Dallas, it makes you play a 7 or an 8-man box. So when you're on the field, they only have 7. They got 4 guys left. If they play an 8-man front, they only got 3 guys left that you can play in coverage. And typically, when you have 8 in the box, they're not going to play a lot of man-to-man. They're going to drop into a lot of zones because they don't have a lot of people to be able to cover. So it slants the field in the wide receiver, or slants the field in the offensive is favored. So they've had this in Dallas the last 2 years with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott in their backfield. And they have seen Dez time after time, game after game, big game after big game, get one-on-one coverage and not be able to dominate the way that he did in 2011, 2012, 2013. No, it's not the same Dez Bryant. Now, why did they release this information? Because I've never heard of this guy before.
Right. When did we hear Jerry Jones talk a lot? Jason Garrett talks somewhat. Yes. Some of the players that you mentioned.
Stephen Jones.
Right, Stephen Jones.
Yes.
You mentioned the Dalrypple's the
Bruce
guy's name.
Dalrymple.
He's their media relations guy.
Yes.
You sometimes even hear from him. We talk about the Cowboys when we talk about any team except for LeBron and the Cavs. Like, across sports, I've never heard of Will McClay. It's not because we're not doing our work. I did not know who this guy was when I first saw the article.
I'm not supposed to know him unless something bad happens.
Right. When I first saw the article, because CC texted to all of us yesterday, I assumed this was a scout from a different team. Right? But it's the Cowboys head scout. So I wondered, why are we hearing this? I also know from my own radio nerd stuff of listening to random cities' local radio coverage. I don't know why I do this, but I do. That's a statement on my life, but that's for another show. Ever since Jason Witten talked about retiring, the conversation on local radio and local media in Dallas is, well, should we bring Dez back? What about bringing Dez back? Was that the real conflict? So that then leads to, you think, this statement coming out, why?
Yeah, someone would have to release him to do that. Someone in the organization would want this information to be communicated. And he came at you with the only way you can respect it, in watching film. You see the way it's dictated, in watching film. He didn't tell you, I talked to people in the Dallas organization, or rumors, some report. He said no. With me and what I do, I watch film and I watch players. And me and my profession, what we have decided is he is not an explosive player, and he is not a mismatch the way that he used to create those for us in years past.
Quickly, before we move on, does this affect him getting picked up by another team?
It doesn't help. right? Like anytime someone that is respected across the league says something negative about a player, it doesn't help. What I would say is the reason I don't think it has an enormous impact, Cece made this point earlier, because I think I said it kneecaps him to a degree. But the information Will McClay has, every team has it, right?
Yes.
Every team has the film. So he's letting the world know what the NFL already knows.
It's sometimes when teams, especially your team, says something about you, typically people will say, I'm going to give you a fresh start. But it's hard to disprove the point that the Dallas Cowboys are making. Des can't disprove that because all the other teams have the same film that they were looking at.
Got it. All right, back to basketball now. Warriors and Pelicans, game 2 last night. The long-awaited return of Steph Curry. Good news, bad news when he gets hurt. Bad news, well, it hurts. Good news, he seems to come back like a man on a mission. 2 years ago, first game back after missing a few weeks with a sprained knee, 40 points. Last night, first game back after missing a few weeks with a sprained knee, 28 points in 27 minutes. Warriors won game 2, 121-116. They take a 2-0 lead. Nick Wright, how impressive was Steph Curry in his first game back last night?
Steph Curry was Steph Curry. And that is a high compliment.
Use it as an
I'm paying
adjective.
him. Yeah, I mean, listen, Steph Curry, when dialed in, when locked in, doesn't even need to be 100% physically. He's one of the 4 or 5 most deadly offensive threats in NBA history. That is what he is. The way he can impact the game without touching the basketball. You know what was wide open for the Warriors last night more than it's been this whole playoff run, even though they're 5-1 going into last night's game in these playoffs? Passing lanes. You know why? Because when Steph doesn't have the ball, you're playing 4-on-4. He can stand 32 feet away from the basket, and the fewer people, because you got to guard him from there. We saw it was third shot out there, shooting it from the O in the Oracle logo. That you have to guard him. So now you're playing 4-on-4. So that makes Draymond better. That makes Durant better. Klay Thompson wasn't good yesterday. All 5 Pelican starters had 14-plus points. And what was the difference in that basketball game? Yes, Kevin Durant was very good. But Steph Curry was the difference in that basketball game. Like, how good was he? As good as he typically is, man, when he's locked in, which is terrifying.
He's a special player. His ability to shoot the basketball. When you talk about as long as he's been playing the NBA, he's the best shooter ever. That right there, that's what that player was right there. But he's not a one-dimensional player. If he's not bringing the ball up, he can come off of screens. His first 3 that he hit, he went off a down screen, came up on the left side, and knocked down a 3. He can go off the pick and roll, but his ability, because his effect on the defense, Nick, that you always talk about, they got dominated in the paint. What do you think the paint scoring in this game was?
You said they got dominated, so I'm guessing they got beat by 15 points?
Nick, they scored 66 points, the Pelicans, to Golden State's 38 points.
So they got beat by 28 points in the paint. 28 points.
So the gravity,
win that game.
Steph and them are pulling the defense out, and they're knocking down shots. And the reason why this is special is Golden State leads the league in layups and baskets at the rim, typically every year, because they're passing, they're cutting, they get to the rim. But because of Steph, they went downtown on, because Steph was able to, man, his effect on defense is something that I haven't seen. It was kind of like Randy Moss when he came into the league and we started seeing people double. I was like, I ain't never seen people cover him like that. That's the way Steph and his effect on modern-day basketball games.
Did the Warriors sort of recap some of that swagger we think they lost down the stretch when there was injury after injury after injury?
Yes.
They were piecemealing themselves back together.
And Draymond's out there scowling. I think he put Anthony Davis in a figure-4 leg lock at one point. Like, he's doing Draymond things. KD's doing his thing, like, quietly gets 29 points. Klay has the worst game he'll have all postseason. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, Steph, go ahead, Steve.
It doesn't matter because KD gets 29, 7, and 6. Draymond is playing. This 2-game stretch he's played is the best basketball that he's played. It looks like Andre Iguodala, he's back and he's energized. Man, this is a special team. The only thing I ever said about Golden State, they are not a championship team without Steph.
I just want to show the audience, because Steph, the one knock on him was he wasn't full conditioning yet, right? So he could only play 27 minutes.
And turn the ball over.
Turn the ball over.
You can tell playoff defense, they put a little pressure on him.
So 27 minutes on the court, 21 minutes off the court. Look at the difference. Look at the difference with him on the court. Offensive rating of 130 with them off the court 72. The difference between shoot 56% from the field, 33% from the field, and a three-point difference of 43% to 17%. I mean, that is when he wasn't out there last night, which was a lot of the game. About 40% of the game, they were blown out. When he was out there, he was dominant. Now, Anthony Davis could have done more in the fourth quarter. That's maybe a discussion for another day, but Steph was remarkable. Remarkable.
All right, coming up, should the Cavs feel lucky after winning Game 1 against Toronto? That's next on First Things First. Lucky. Should they feel lucky?
Lucky Cavs. Lucky against the Pacers.
Yeah, if they can make one layup.